Good evening, Wizards. Hope you're all having a good evening so far. It's Monday, it's around 9 p.m. here in the UK, and we've finally seen some movement across the market. Not the greatest of movements, let's just say. It hasn't necessarily worked too well in our favour to kickstart that. However, we have seen some movement at last. It's been a very long, agonising wait. It's been around a week now, maybe even longer, just over a week and a half, just waiting for this tedious, just stagnant period to see some growth. And we finally see that come through. So what's interesting to note here, first and foremost, is absolutely nothing has changed from the overall upside bias that we're looking at for the short term before shifting over to the overall medium term targets down below. So just so you understand, first and foremost, with XRP that was closed out in a 0.5% loss, that still has not actually even detrimented or affected the profits that have been made from the past few trades that have been given. So besides the past, I think it was 2, maybe 3, I don't really remember, that had the stop loss hit when we went for the dual trade with the same setup. I think it was BTC and XRP or Ether. I really don't remember, to be honest with you, as we've been waiting on this pair for so long. My memory has been absolutely fried, just waiting for these pairs to move. So now that we're back on this and we're finally seeing some movement, I'm very excited to see this movement come through. Now, although the stop loss was triggered, we have to remember there's a reason why we only follow by the 0.5% principles, and that's because during these very tricky market conditions in particular, it's always wise to massively reduce your risk and just go for much smaller profits. Do not try to get greedy and do not try to get too cocky, because when the market does pull back in this manner, it can and will attempt to humble you if you do try to get too big for your boots. Now, in this particular instance and in this particular scenario, stop loss was triggered, but guess what? The overall key structure and the overall, let's just say the monthly or the weekly, you can see no matter what happens here, we're still within the boundaries of that key level and key zone. Now, as you've noticed, there's only 3 key levels. I know I gave you guys 4 in the Discord chat and the Wizard chat. However, I've decided to go back to the course principles to make this even easier for all of you, and more importantly, the lesson that 3 is the magic number. This is exactly that. We're sticking to the general rule of thumb of 3. Now, you will notice that XRP, although we saw a little bit of a spike lower and everyone's screaming it's dumping, we have to remember not to get ahead of ourselves here. And the reason being is, once this daily candle closes, we will have a very big insight and an eye-opener into what could be coming next. And it's normally during these moments where you do see a very drastic and sharp drop or rise against the overall bias that the opposing movement then follows through. So what I mean in this instance is, although we have seen the pullback and the spike lower, theoretically we've just dived straight into the key level again, monthly key level. Remember, these 3 levels are crucial because they are monthly key zones, which means when price lands within these regions, it's more likely you're not going to fulfill a movement that will cause a very drastic and very sharp upside reversal. So it's all about patience and it's all about understanding what's going on. And the beauty of only risking 0.5% is it allows you the leverage of actually going in and re-entering again if need be. So let's just say we have had 3 in a row. We've only lost 1.5% of our overall account balance. Now, considering the average person, especially during market conditions like this, they like to go for 2 to 5% risk, which inevitably is not going to get them very far within the market. So when you're combining the likes of a 0.5% risk that goes wrong, I've made approximately, I think it was around 12-13% overall since we've actually given the calls with the Wizard chat. Since we've actually launched the platform, we should be, and all of you guys should be, around 10 to 15% up. So taking a 1.5% loss for me is absolutely nothing, and I do not care. And there's still enough room to push that up an extra 0.5% and just take it to even a 2% risk to still end up with a very significant profit for the month of December. So pushing this forward, and just to show you what's going on here, the bigger picture, flipping XRP upside down on the daily, and the first thing you'll notice is this. Crucial, absolutely crucial, because we now have 1, 2, 3, the trend line rejection over there. And remember this, you would have noticed this more importantly within the Wizard live that was posted, and obviously, you know, it was live. Within that video, This wick here was crucial, and the same goes for every other wick as well. The theory is when you see the first manipulative candle come through, and then you see the candle bodies move here, as long as we do not break this region, and if I mark this out with a little zone, you will understand even clearer with what I'm saying. This becomes the support floor when you actually see the first movement come through. So the first real spike that hits a key level like this, the little region here where it peaks, does become your new level. So obviously if I was to flip this upside down, this would then become our new support floor. So all price has done is, again, I can even extend this out to be a bit cleaner. If I just get that from there to there, you can see 1, 2, 3, whether that's from there to there, it doesn't really matter. It's pretty clean that way regardless. You can see 1, 2, 3, we've now descended lower. That's the third trend line bounce. We've now tapped a monthly key level of around 2050. We've also tapped this zone here precisely, landing within that region. If I go to the 4-hour time frame, well, guess what's happened? The candle body has spiked to our zone, but it's closed above the trend line. We've also tapped here as well. Going over to the 1-hour time frame, you can see some consolidation here as well, which is further aiding the theory that in the next 3 hours we could be seeing some very interesting and exciting movement. And if I am to go over to the daily time frame over here yet again, flip this upside down, you can see the 1, 2, 3 rejections looking perfect. So even though we have breached this region over here, this for me is technically, just as you've seen here, huge wick fishing region, boom, boom, boom. You do inevitably push higher sometimes, wiping out all of the people that went long, myself included, before inevitably obviously falling, or in this case rising if we go to the correct side, and blowing back towards the original target. So putting all of this into perspective right now, this is simply looking like a very short-term case of manipulation before we actually see the overall larger movement come through. So in short, this is simply, again, not sure what's going on here, must be Wi-Fi, doesn't matter, that will come back very soon. So overall, in a very short nutshell, as long as we are remaining within the boundaries of these key levels, it does not matter what happens. As you've seen here before on XRP in particular, wick fishing, wick fishing, wick fishing, wick fishing. But every single time the candles manage to reverse and they manage to explode. This is the absolute importance, of these key levels, because look, even when you see that little bits of a breach lower and you see all of those wicks breaching the zone, have you noticed how the candle body's maintained in that region? That gave me a massive confidence even during this period here where price could have potentially broken higher. And again, using the wick theory once again, the manipulative wick, the absolute highest one of them all you would do in this scenario is just plot a little zone like this, look at the rejection, it always comes back around, rejects, maintains within that zone, and boom, off we continue on our merry way. And it's exactly the same as what's going on here. As you can see, huge wick, come back and reject it, and we could potentially be seeing a very sharp and very powerful move coming from this. It's literally exactly the same, it's a mirror identical of what's going on. So when you do drop down to that 4-hour time frame, as you can see here, and you can see the wicks, the 1, 2, the 3, the 4. We spiked through, we closed above, we've maintained within this wick region as well. If I was to actually just plot this out over here and mark that down to the nearest grid around 0.2060, you would see we're within that region as well. So it's essentially one wick came through, and then the smaller wick, just like the other, is maintaining within the secondary wick region. So it's all just going hand in hand very nicely right now. Now, depending on how you took this trade setup, and if you were in the trade like myself and you were running a long position and you did get wiped out, then I wouldn't necessarily be looking at jumping straight back in. Now, I personally know this is now looking like an incredible setup, and a very, very promising setup at that, especially with the multiple confluences, the key levels, the monthly zones, the trend line bounce, the third trend line bounce as well, 78.6 located just above. For all we know, within 1 hour and 50 minutes, this could very easily close back above this region, and then we would have a perfect 78.6 reversal, especially from a daily time frame perspective. When this candle does close, imagine this does close there, taps there, and absolutely booms, and that will be exactly what you just saw from the upside over there as well. So looking pretty solid to me overall, all going very well. Let's just have a look if there's anything else we can identify here, but to be honest with you guys, going all in all on this approximate setup, it's just looking good. The key level from zone to zone, and not to mention as well, we haven't actually retested this. Now, I'm not saying we're going to go all the way up to 29 cents, but since we've at least broken this key level and we've gone straight down from this key level of around 0.255, monthly key level as well, by the way, we've broken through and we haven't come back to retest this region just yet. Now, obviously with a perfect Fibonacci extension aligning dead centered with this monthly key level, you can kind of understand why I'm starting to predict and why the overall bigger picture, or not bigger picture, but the short term, has not changed just yet. It stays exactly the same. In the grand scheme of things, as covered before anyway, these movements here are minuscule. Very small movements in comparison to what XRP continuously showcases it can do when there is sufficient liquidity in the market. Now, if anything, this is showing us that, again, just like I said, it's now the 16th, it's around 10 p.m. here in the UK, and what happened was in the prior half of the video, I forgot to mention, we did have, I had some kind of issue with my Mac, so I've just made a secondary version to this, continuing where we left off, waited for it to all fix. So it's 10 p.m. here, and normally, considering it's the 16th, I did say we were looking at around the 20th to start seeing that real movement come through. So now that we're looking at that potential movement coming through around that date, we can estimate that in around 3 days' time, the momentum could really start picking up. And this could simply be the premature move before the real large movement comes through, exploding us all the way to 25.5 cents, potentially even tapping the 70, not even the 78.6, tapping the 61.8 with the 0.27 region, and then from there we could just be looking at the rollover and the collapse down to our final targets. Now, BTC, lovely jubbly. I'm not sure what is going on with TradingView right now. Just quickly refresh that. There we go. Again, not sure why my TradingView Pro's gone as well, unless I'm logged in on another account. I'm not sure what's going on here, but we can fix that in the next video, especially for tomorrow when I'll be going over the altcoins. Again, all the altcoins that you guys know, IOTA, ZRX, ARK, NEO, all of those kind of ones, even a bit of Syscoin, BNB, whatever it is you guys want, I'll be going through it as well. And we'll be going over some longer term investment strategies. So incredibly excited for that, really looking forward to doing that for all of you as well. But for the time being, let's just focus on this. Now, BTC, again, has covered the 78.6, the support zone here, exactly in line with that wick. It's just going hand in hand and we haven't broken through. We've simply nosedived precisely to this level. Now, from a 4-hour perspective, if we just watch this very carefully, we can see the absolute precision. Even if I was to get rid of my zone, we can see the absolute precision of that 78.6 and the downside channels that have been forming ever so nicely in line with our analysis. Now, remember what I showed you, how this thing works. It goes from up, down, up, down, up, down. And we've seen that movement so many times now. So essentially, we are nearing the bottom of the channel yet again. The only difference is there's been a severe amount of manipulation. So it's been a bit harder than normal to actually capitalize off the market in these current conditions. But as of now, things are still looking very promising. And if we go from the more so the body to bodies over there, as you can see, absolutely perfect. The zone and the channel is being rejected on the support, plus you've got the 78.6, plus you've got the wick regions over here which are not being breached. So if we do go to, is it this tool? It's this tool. So if we do reactivate this rectangle, we can see multiple confluences now. One confluence there, another confluence there, another confluence there. That's 3 confluences alone at this particular region. Add this hand in hand with the fact this is not only support, but it's also within the wick region, and you've immediately just found 4 confluences in a single moment for what could potentially be the final shift lower. So it's all, this is more of just a little update just to keep you in sync with the market, but also just show you that to zoom out, you will actually realize very quickly these little movements here, and why I only risk 0.5% is because if you do see a little bit of a pullback like XRP did and you do lose that 0.5%, the market conditions are messy anyway, so why go and risk an additional 1 or 2% when you can just risk 0.5 if anything goes wrong in the worst case scenario and the market still remains within your boundaries as it's doing right now. Ether is the only one that I'm not really going to be covering today, actually. We'll just get rid of that. But look at XRP, exactly within those regions. Confluence is everywhere yet again. Trend line, we've hit the trend line. It's also the third bounce. That's 2 confluences. 78.6 located just here. So if we do see that closure above, then that'll be 3 confluences. Not to mention there's a monthly key level. So that's 4 confluences. We're also within the wick region here. That's 5 confluences and 5 reasons why this could be a very potential good setup now. Now, for me personally, I'm out of this now. I do not care because it's been a very choppy mess around this region, just trying to get the long opportunity here. And arguably, we caught the first move, the second one pulled back, the third one pulled back as well. But guess what? We're still in that boundary. So the overall target and bias hasn't changed whatsoever. Not to mention the dip lower as well. Also confluences with what we've seen many times over. You see the movements, you push down, rejection, rejection, final dip lower to wipe out all the long positions here, but maintain within the boundaries and you can continue higher. So that's technically 6 confluences on this particular setup. Now, if you've done what I've done, again, not really advisable to just jump straight back into another position. But if I hadn't taken the XRP trade, this is what I would have done right now. I would have entered now, first and foremost, 0.5%, especially if you haven't been taking the majority of the trades that I've been taking, then you can actually take the additional risk now because it's much lower and at a much more optimal price, and it's maintaining these regions. In 1 hour and 40 minutes, you will find out even further if this is going to be the final deal breaker and game changer for this pair. And as long as we're maintaining within these regions, it's more than promising to me. 1 wick, 2 wicks, 3 wicks, 4 wicks tapping the same level. So in this instance, looking at the decent risk to reward, understanding that the 25.5 cents region is looking very promising. Now, if you were to enter 0.5% here, wait for another candle closure above, you could even enter another 0.5 if need be. But I would be very careful with these market conditions. And again, as I've said, I'm just going to keep repeating this now. If you were in the trades like myself, do not rush back in. Do what I'm doing, sit on the side as a spectator. If it does come through even, and it actually just rockets to this target now, I will still be satisfied knowing my projection came through. Just because this fell a little bit lower, it does not take away from the overall call. And that's why I'm happy to sit aside now. And if it does come through, then it's even better because you guys would have made a significant amount of money. And that for me alone is a win-win situation. As long as you guys are profiting off the calls, me sitting aside and missing out is really not a problem whatsoever. So flip that upside down right now, you can see some nice rejections here. Everything's just really going nicely in line. And if you look at the regions over here in terms of where the stop loss is placed, there isn't really too much prior price action. All you would need to do here is look at the wicks over there. This is why I placed it just above, and you see you place it above the prior wicks where manipulations occurred before, and you should be relatively safe. As you can see, it happens all the time. We hit the key level once, as you can see here, rejections, nothing breaches past it, rejections again, dump straight down to the next key level, fulfill the overall bigger picture. Whilst everyone's scrambling over these little movements here, we're waiting and sitting aside for the big movements to come through. And rest assured, if this does come through, this will recoup any loss you've made with those 0.5% trades anyway. So it's another win-win situation. And if you have been following the calls from the beginning, guess what? You should be at least 10 to 15% up if you have been following the calls since the Wizard platform launched. So for me, it's looking still promising, it's looking great, and just wanted to give you guys a little update, just kind of guide you through. I know, especially for the people that are new in the market, and for those of you who are new, you may be a little concerned, you may be a bit scared, but the market can be tricky. We've had almost, 2 weeks of just idle price action, and then bang, we finally get some movement. But look at this, it's minuscule. We see movements way larger than this, and this is simply just fulfilling a region. Let's see how these daily candles close. I'll be here to monitor, and then from there onwards, if we see a daily candle closure within our regions and it maintains our regions, then we wait for the next daily candle to open. We wait for wick fishing around the original regions and the prior wicks of the prior daily candle, and we can potentially look at entries from there as well. But use this analysis in line with everything that's been covered in the Discord, everything that's been covered in your own charts as well. You guys are sending me everything in the Wizard Worldwide chat, and believe me, I see absolutely everything, and you should use the Wizards Worldwide chat as well. As I've said before, when the stop loss gets hit, just make it fun, because we know what we're losing. We're not here to lose a lot of money. We're calculating our risk. Everything is premeditated. So if a trade does go wrong, let's go in the chat and let's just joke around about it. Let's have some fun. You can even mimic each other a little bit, have a little laugh. Never let it get serious. And I promise you, when you learn to laugh off your losses and joke around with the community, we're all in this together. Just remember that when you guys have a loss, I'm also having a loss. When you guys are celebrating the wins, I'm right there with you celebrating the wins. We are in this together regardless. So just stay calm, never panic, and the Wizard is here to always take care of things regardless.